It seems obviously broken and completely evil to sexualize small children this way. I think the storyline they tell themselves, some of these children are going to have divergent beliefs from the mainstream views on things. By providing this kernel of information out there, we're liberating them from the oppression that they might otherwise feel if they were forced to comply with social norms around. I think there are better ways of getting that kind of a message than deceiving parents, preventing them from knowing what's going on in the school system, and trying to pit children against their parents. To work on the governor's workforce under the healthcare sector. Wouldn't it be great for like middle school and high school kids to be able to kind of, hey, I could be a pilot or I could be an EMT tech and I don't have to go to college and get into debt for the next 10 years of my life. Welcome to the Dr. Nagy Show. I'm Dr. Ori Nagy, candidate for U.S. Congress, 3rd Congressional District of Nevada. I'm here today with Tanya Atterbury, who is an advocate in the school system. She's been a school counselor for 30 years. And most recently we met at the Turning Point Battleground event. She is has been the founder of, was it Moms Against, tell me the name of it.
Well, first of all, I'm the chair of Turning Point's coalition, Moms Coalition. So that's where I'm at. That was the first time I've ever been in chair. So I usually am in the background, and I'm usually doing the research. And I'm usually handing the research to somebody else for them to present. So this is really just my first year of really coming out and speaking myself for the last year at these school board meetings, and then really becoming a chair for Turning Point Coalition's Moms, so that I can start advocating the way I would like to advocate.
How long have you been affiliated with that organization?
So I have been part of the Turning Point for at least 5 years now. I just have never done a leadership role. I've always been either a member or I've been kind of like a volunteer in the, like I said, in the background of everything. But this year I felt like this is the time that I could actually take a leadership role myself, because there's so much I want to do, and it's just not moving fast enough for me. So I'm like, let's go.
So you've been a part of Turning Point and been through this transition. I mean, there was a terrible tragedy with Charlie Kirk, and for a good amount of time before that.
Yeah, I was excited about taking the position because I took the position just before they were going to send us out to do training, just before he was killed. So it was like one of the most disappointing moments, because you're finally at that point where like, I'm going to go out there and get some training. I'm so excited. I was able to go to one of his events 2 years ago, and I got to meet him and everybody that I admired. And that's where I ignited a little bit of fire, because I went out there, I saw all the people I wanted to see and what they had to say. And then I was like, you know what, I can do this too. So that's when I really started focusing on what needs to happen in public schools, because now that I've got 30 years in the school district, I'm like, what can I do to kind of help make some changes that has happened since COVID?
So you kind of caught some of that fire that his enthusiasm for it, and it kind of gave you courage and motivation to start to take action in your own community. And that's kind of what he was doing all over the country. That was sort of his message, is let's start talking about these things.
Right.
That's really great. I got to meet him once when he came here to Las Vegas for the NPRI event.
Yeah.
And at first I was struck by how tall he was. He was a really tall guy. And he was like laser focused on what he was doing. I mean, his questions were always exactly to the point. What can you tell me about this? He was very concerned at that time about vaccines. Yes. And I could tell him a lot about COVID and what we knew about the COVID vaccine, but he wanted to know, about vaccines in general. And I was like, well, so far it looks like, RFK is doing the right thing.
You're right.
In the right direction.
I agree.
Yeah. But so what were the first things that you started doing as part of that movement when you decided you could get involved? And I'm asking you this as like part of an inspirational story for other people, so they can sort of see what it looked like and how they can get involved too.
Yeah. So the first thing, basically when I was watching and I was listening, we had started talking about the books that are in the school libraries and the books that were happening. And it really wasn't on my radar, because as a high school counselor, I'm focused on transcripts and focused on graduation and focused on careers, and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't on my radar. But the more I was thinking about like, what are we talking about? And then they had a breakout session where they were talking about pornography in the schools. And I was wondering what is this? So when I did a research on Clark County School District, I realized that what they're talking about is these books that these librarians are picking and putting in their in these libraries are like how-to sex books. So these how-to sex books are actually all the way into elementary school. It goes from elementary all the way up to high school. I was thinking only high school. I never in a million years thought it was in elementary. And then when I researched and found that the books are there, last year during legislation, I actually advocated to say, hey, you know what, this should not be in these elementary schools. And then I went there and they told me I was lying, because what Clark County School District had was a username and password for the student. So the student could get into the libraries, but the parents couldn't. There is no username and password for the parent, and there is no username and password for the community to see what's in those books. So a year ago, I put a petition together and I said, no, we're opening up those libraries to an open source library system so that anybody can go to the schools and see what is in the schools.
So it sounds like people had maybe deliberately created an agenda to conceal the information they were passing to kids from the parents. And the only reason to do that is if you think the parents of these children might object to the things they're trying to teach your kids.
Yes, that was in there.
So this is done with intent.
Yes.
This kind of situation doesn't happen by accident.
No, it did not. And then, yeah, so when I went to Turning Point, they do a lot of trainings and those little breakout sessions, and I learned so much about it. That's why I was laser focused. I said, the only way that the parents can't object if they don't know what's in it. So that was my focus, was getting those libraries open. So last October, the superintendent opened up those libraries. So now everybody can see what is in those libraries. So then the next step was I read some from those books at a school board meeting that were elementary school books, and then now those books have been removed from.
I don't want to gloss over what you just said, because you made it sound like it was nothing. Like I went down there and I asked them to open it up, and they opened it up, and then I read them. But I can't imagine that the school board moved like that. I would think that's something that
Took me a year.
A year.
Took me a year. I sat in the same seat at the school board meeting every time, unless I was sick. I was at that school board meeting, made a public comment. Regulation 6150 needs to be repealed. I just repeated the same thing over and over and over again. Charlie Kirk said the same thing. He was like, hey, if you repeat it over and over and over again, he goes, they will probably get tired of listening to you and actually look at what it is that you're saying, which they did. And then it was interesting that they realized that some of these books really needed to be removed from elementary school. I don't think how-to books or how to have sex books should ever be in an elementary school public library.
I will tell you, 30 years ago now, maybe more, when I was in med school, I signed up to be part of this advocacy group where you go and teach kids in schools. And one of the things you could do is you teach sex ed. So there's a cute girl doing that. So I was like, I'll sign up for that. And so, and then I saw the things that they were trying to teach these kids. Mm-hmm. And my jaw literally dropped. I was like, I can't believe this is, they were things that still to this day would make me embarrassed to talk about in an open setting, right? Really just, not vile. People do these things, and what they do in the privacy of their own homes is up to them, but certainly not appropriate for small children to be hearing about, really until they're well into their adult years, I would.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of that's where I'm at. I'm at, like, what are we doing with kids? I have been in education my whole life. So I've got my education in Vegas. I was born and raised here. So I got educated here. I went to college here. I graduated from UNLV. I have been in education in this city my whole life. And I gave 30 years of my life into that career. And to see what we're doing to kids now is just, it's appalling to me.
So this was done, somebody decided to do this. And so this agenda, this plan came from somewhere, that we were going to conceal from the parents what the children are reading so that we can teach them something that they wanted to teach them.
Yes.
And I'm really stuck on that fact that this is a deliberate agenda that took effort and execution and planning.
Yes.
Because who benefits from a plan like that? Like, who takes the time? And it can only be people who have the agenda promoting or sexualizing young children.
Right.
And exposing, and I imagine in their minds they're doing something heroic by deceiving the parents, not allowing them to see what they're teaching the children so that they can sexualize these young children.
Right. Well, when I was fighting this on the school board level, legislation, they tried to pass AB 416, which was the librarians went out there and actually spoke to the legislators and tried to get this bill passed that said, what if parents are questioning what's happening in the schools, that they could actually be hit with a Class C felony.
Wow.
That bill actually was in legislation last year. We fought it to the death, and thank goodness Governor Lombardo actually vetoed it, but it should never have gotten past where he had to veto it.
So there was a section within the school district, a group of teachers who were like, "How dare you ask us what we're teaching the kids?"
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So then they tried also with AB 465, which is also introduced by one of the legislators that was a teacher, Brittany Miller. She put in one that said that that bill, AB 465, that the librarian had no civil or criminal liability of what was in their libraries or what was happening in their libraries. Tell me you're going to give a Class C felony to a parent for asking questions about what's in there, but you're going to give civil and criminal immunity to the same people who have stuff in their libraries that the parents are asking about. Tell me how legislation works that way. Because if you're going to go up into legislation, or you tell those two bills right there, tell me there's a problem.
So these are the people who put laws like this into place very clearly feel that their perception of morality and that their belief system is superior to that of the parents who are taking care of these children, and that it's important for them to protect the parents or protect the children from the parents.
Correct.
That is where this stems from, that the parents aren't fit to decide what the appropriate behavior and knowledge is for their children, and that they have to rescue them from that dynamic.
Right. Right. That's why legislation is so important, and that's why I deep dived into it last year, and I made sure that I was very, very aware and clear what bills were being passed or being looked at that had to do anything to do with public education.
So I think that's a real discussion that the country needs to have.
Yes.
Are a child's parents appropriate to guide their ethical, moral decision making?
Yes.
And if not the parents, then who else? Should it be the school system? But then the school system didn't want to take responsibility. They wanted to be civilly held unaccountable for whatever values that they now impart to them.
It just seems counterintuitive to me.
It seems obviously broken and frankly evil to sexualize small children this way. I think the storyline they tell themselves is, well, some of these children are going to have divergent beliefs from the mainstream views on things, and that by providing this kernel of information out there, we're liberating them from the oppression that they might otherwise feel if they were forced to or felt compelled to comply with social norms around them.
Right.
And I think there are better ways of getting that kind of a message than deceiving parents, preventing them from knowing what's going on in the school system, and trying to pit children against their parents.
Yeah, and that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm trying to do.
Well, thank you for the hard work that you've done. That's really important stuff, and I'm glad that more people are going to get to learn about that.
Yes.
So what else is going on in the schools that we need to change in the short term?
I think right now there's a lot of families that just have there's no direction. CCSD wants to Band-Aid everything and throw Band-Aids on all the problems. And I understand that we're a big district, and I understand we're a big city, and I get it. But at the same time, you can't Band-Aid everything. So there's a lot of families that are still hurting from when we had the shutdown. We still have a lot of high unemployment. We still have a lot of families that are being evicted from their homes, their apartments. They're doubled up. There's just a lot of families that are now living on top of each other, trying to just to get by. So, the public school system has Title I, which is really just resources for those kids that are homeless, for those kids that are, may not be with their families, or they're doubled up, or, they just can't access food or clothing or all those kind of things. So we provide those services, but there's such a big need, they run out of money a lot of times.
What percentage of kids are accessing Title I services, do you think?
I think it's probably closer to like 25% of the kids now, where it used to be like maybe 5% of the kids. Like there wasn't very many kids that I'd be like, hey, here's some services for you. Here's some things that you could get. Here's soap. Here's where you can go to get some clothes, those kind of things. But it's like an 80% rise. Every time I turn around, there's a family in need that needs something. So we provide those resources to them, or at least send them to where they need to go. I mean, a lot of them need medical stuff, like just a dentist or getting the eyeglasses. And, before schools used to just do those tests and then you send them off to wherever they need to go. But it just, the need is so much higher than I think we can even understand because you don't see it.
I had an opportunity to talk to Victoria Seaman. So she was our city councilwoman, and she's gone on to work. She was asked by Trump to go work at the Department of Health and Human Services. So she now oversees Nevada and I think 12 other states. And I got to talk to her about the federally qualified healthcare system, which is a government program set up to provide dental care and primary care to communities that don't typically get doctors that are economically disadvantaged.
Yeah.
And when I was part of that, I got to bear witness to tremendous corruption. And there was like a financial kickback thing that went from the local level all the way back to Washington.
Yeah.
And because I was on the board of one of these things, and when I refused to pay the kickbacks, they came at me incredibly viciously.
Yeah.
Because I was, disrupting their system, and then could report on it, because if they're not controlling me, then I can start to freely, discuss what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I kind of documented this all for Victoria, who can go up there and now kind of make changes that we need to make in our country. But if they revamp that system, that creates a lot of tools that would be available for the country to utilize to deal with the situations that you're talking about, at least for the healthcare section of it. And we'll be able to, using the resource from that agency appropriately,
right.
Without this kind of fraud, this sort of Minnesota-style fraud, to start to provide better care to everybody here in our state.
Yeah,
and that's at least part of the solution.
Yeah, because a lot of these kids are they're in just this long waiting line, and there's nothing I can do. So I'm thankful that I have insurance, and I always tell my kids, hey, you have insurance. I said you should be very grateful. I said, because I can take you to a doctor. I said, but there's a lot of kids out there that are sitting there that they're just waiting to make sure that they get the care that they need. It's a very sad situation to see.
So we should get that information up on our website about where all the federally qualified health centers are in Las Vegas. They can go and sign up, and they can get care, and they'll help.
Oh, they sure can. And I'll give you my link to. Because I have a on our school website, I created a counselor corner with community resources on it.
That's so great.
Yeah, and I put everything in there that a kid or a family could need. That way I'm not embarrassing the family. I'm like, you can just click on this link, look through all of the resources, and you pick and choose what you need. You don't want to call families out, because I know how hard it is to even ask for help.
I was doing a podcast a little while ago with a gentleman, and he's a multi-millionaire kind of a fella, but he's really good with AI systems. And we had talked about, wouldn't it be great if there was an assistance navigator for people, like an AI that just, you sort of say, this is where I'm at, and the AI says, hey, did you know that there's this bajillion list of services that are available for you? If you need, go here.
Yes.
And because most people get lost in that system, how do you find all that stuff? And there are only so many social workers out there, case managers out there, and I think that'd be really helpful.
I like to compile everything in a website. Everything is there. All the resources are there. You just need to go, and it's all free. I don't charge. I'm like, you can have anything, because really the point is to get the people to where they need to be and not hinder them in any way. And that's not where I want to go with anything, so that's why everything I do, I put on.
Well, maybe that's something the state or the federal government should be, working on to help do a better job of helping people to get access to the tools and resources that are out there.
Well, yeah, especially at a local level, because if you go and Google stuff, it'll give you national, and then it'll give you here's your state, and then there's a plethora of things that you have to go through. It doesn't really dig down unless you really research. all the local things that are happening so that you know in Henderson, this is what's going on. In North Las Vegas, this is what's going on. These are all the resources in all these different pockets. Because we have vans that are going, I mean, who knew there was vans going around giving eyeglasses out and doing all this kind of stuff. Like I didn't know that was happening until I researched it and found it. And then I put it on the website and said, hey, here's these vans are going to be at these places at these times. Go and get help when they're on your side of town. Because a lot of people don't have transportation.
I feel like, the people who know this stuff pretty well in society, that everybody would have access as a resource to, I feel like the religious institutions in the state, they have a pastor or a rabbi or whatever who's looking over the people in that district. And it's their job to know their flock, and it's their job to people come to them when they're in trouble.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great to find ways to, allow maybe the federal government to help them to better deliver the resources to the people who need them?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just such a waste that we try to create all these secular institutions specifically to duplicate the efforts that these organizations are already built to provide, just because we're trying to separate church and state like that. I think
Right.
if there was a way that we could do it, that we could organize where we could utilize the resources of those organizations that already know who needs what trouble, and in a lot of ways, the flock holds the pastor accountable.
Yeah.
It's not like they're going to build a secular institution and they're going to be able to siphon hundreds of millions of dollars out of the system,
Right.
because nobody's going to church for that, right? Or whatever their faith is.
Yeah.
And so that's something I've been thinking a lot about. Like, that would be a much better way of doing things, I think.
Yeah, and I think if everybody kind of like had, I don't know, integrate with different things instead of this person does this, it seems so separated. Trying to get everything into one little place is difficult to do. I do it just because I'm an organized. I have to have everything in a certain order. It's just the way I go. So for me, I'm like, I can't go to 5 different places. I need it all in one. Just give me all the information in one so I can kind of do a checklist of what I need to do. It would be nice.
One of the things that I had worked on, I had worked on the governor's workforce board under the healthcare sector. It was under Sandoval many years ago. Mm-hmm. And there was a lady, Marcia Turner, who was part of that group, and she had made a list of all the jobs in healthcare, what the educational requirement was, what the average salary was, what the number of hours worked was, and then a little excerpt of somebody's, from that job sector. So saying, this is what my day is like. Mm-hmm. And so people could kind of when they had to transition out of whatever job they had before, they could go and say, hey, that's, I'd like to do that job. I have that kind of education, or it wouldn't take much for me to get there. And it gave people options that were very visible and that they could make an easy decision. And I thought they should do that for really every job in the economy, and not just for people who are transitioning from one job to another. Yeah. But wouldn't it be great for middle school and high school kids to be able to kind of, just peruse that, hey, I could be a pilot, or I could be an EMT tech, and I don't have to go to college and get into debt for the next, 10 years of my life.
Correct.
Right? They can just sort of say that, and so many of those folks have fantastic careers without college. I've had a lot of people in that seat there who, have done extraordinarily well in life and successful careers or families, or from all walks of life. But I mean, you would definitely talk to them and say their life is successful, and it didn't have to go through a college degree, is what we're finding out.
Yeah, and I would tell them, do not take out student loans. Word of warning, don't take out any student loans. You'll be paying on those for the rest of your life.
Wow. So what option? So military then is a better option for those kids, you think?
Yeah, military would be a good option. If you are going to be going off to getting a college degree or whatever, slow your roll. Okay. Because you don't want to get into that debt if the debt is going to be higher than what you're getting paid when you get out. So I knew teaching, when I became a teacher, I knew that the pay wasn't going to be the most amazing pay whatsoever. But in my head, when I was, 19, 20 years old, I did not think about the consequences of taking that money and it's sitting there collecting interest for all those years while I was getting my degree and getting my first 5 years of schooling. Yeah. Compounded over a 10-year period of time, you take a $50,000 loan, it's now $175,000. It's a tremendous debt.
Well, I think it'd be a nice thing if we could find a way to do some sort of debt forgiveness for teachers. So, I mean, they're kind of, everybody talks about how do we improve education in our state. Maybe that
Yeah.
would be a way to attract, more teachers and really high quality teachers with, high degree of education. And
Yeah. They had a program for it, but there's so many different sticklers and tricks and everything that by the time you figure out, you've already messed up. So it's like if you mess one day up, then you have to start all over again. So it was like a pointless. You know.
is there a way we're a big retirement destination here in
Yeah.
Las Vegas, and is there a pathway whereby people who have, been out there in the working space and, had their degrees or whatever, and they've come here, is there like a lightweight version of teacher where they could come in and teach, 3-4 days a week, or, or one day?
No.
No. Okay. It'd be nice.
It would be nice, yeah.
stuff.
It would be nice to have something that is like that. It's kind of like a hybrid program of, vocational work that we used to have. Because when I was in high school, I took shop, I took home ec, I took mechanics, I learned how to change a tire, I learned how to do all those things. Not only just baking and cooking and all that kind of stuff, which I still can't, but I can change a tire. I had wood shop. Yeah, I made a birdhouse. All of those pieces, actually, I was able to be a part of. They took that away, and they took all of those pieces away, and now they're trying to implement them back underneath this thing called a magnet school. But it's not the same because now all we're focusing on is testing. So did they test? Did they test? What is our star rating? You know what I mean? Like it's become political in a way that it's not about the kids anymore. They lost the value of building a birdhouse. Like I'm not a woodworker. Never did woodworking past that point, but I do remember all the things that we did during that class. My birdhouse was not good. It was very crooked, but the teacher was like,
skill set that you might need one day.
yeah, but the teacher was like, you know what? You gave it the very best that you could. You learned some skills, those kinds of things. I learned geometry, which, not very good in geometry, but I did learn a lot about geometry in a birdhouse. But see, those are the things that we took away from kids and away from education. You have to learn geometry, but you don't know why and where and how to use it in real life because we just teach it to you and you have to pass it because we said so. I'm like, well, not necessarily when it comes to like learning something that is real world. I keep telling everybody, I said, we need real world skills. Can we just get back to that? But they do not answer me and say yes.
How do you help kids to find those pathways, right? Like, how do you, so you've been a school counselor for, 30 years. How do you help a kid who, you're like, you know what, I've seen, 500 kids who seem to be, a lot like you. And they've seemed, when I've watched them in their careers as they've gone on to go and do whatever, they seem the most happy when they pick, this set of jobs that I know they're hired for here in Vegas. How do you have that discussion with a child? Because sometimes, they maybe might imagining themselves doing something, either a lot better, that it's going to be a struggle for them, or that's, a waste of their incredible talent, or not a waste, but they find peace or joy. How do you make those decisions and help these kids with that?
The one thing that I think is we could really actually promote that is really good for kids is taking the military ASVAB. Okay. So that is a career assessment that assesses the student in a holistic way. And then it gives them all these different career paths that tells them these are here and this is where you could go. Kids can't even imagine of the jobs they could possibly have unless they can see like the laundry list of things. I have seen kids that come out of that test going, oh my gosh, I always thought that I couldn't do this, but I could be part of building a house. Maybe I can't be an architect. That's just not something that's in me. But at the same time, I love the foundation part of it. I love the decorating part of it. I love this piece of it. And if taking this test showed me that I have all these skill sets that I didn't know I had. Because all we teach the kids is here's your classes. You have, English 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you have math, and then you have, algebra, geometry, algebra 2, college readiness math. You're stuck in this hole, even though we constantly are telling students, you know what, you're a portrait of a student. is what the school district says, right? And the portrait of a student is supposed to be individualized, is supposed to be help that kid get to whatever dream that they have. But what we've done is put the kids all in a box that says you have to take algebra, geometry, algebra 2, college readiness math. Those are your choices. It doesn't really give them any kind of a value of maybe what they could possibly give to the world, and they're missing that. And their mental capacity with all this mental health issues that are going on right now, I will say that it has to be because the kids cannot see themselves in a future. They do not see themselves in their own future.
What's the earliest age we could give an ASVAB test?
So
The military
10th grade.
10th grade is the earliest you can
Yeah, 10th grade is when you could take it. You can take it all the way through. You can take it as many times as you want. There's a, it's a fabulous way of telling kids that you do have a future.
Where have you seen kids taking these? Are kids who are just the ones who would want to apply for military career?
I actually am I proctor, well, the guy comes out and proctors. I just sit and watch, and it's amazing to watch. We actually, in the school district, can offer it to any kid, basically. And then basically they come out, they proctor the test, and then they do an interpretation for the kids so they can see what is their choices. And they give them this little booklet that gives them all their different, it's like one of those collages before, back in the day when you did your dream collage and you were like, I'm gonna be this, and then these are the, do you remember those?
I remember seeing them.
When I was teaching English, my kids always did a dream collage of what is your future gonna look like? And then they did a collage and they would put all their stuff in there. We don't do that anymore. We don't tell kids, here's what you can dream and here is your future. We just get them to the goal line of graduation and to whatever college, tech school or whatever, and we let them go. We forgot to personalize it in a way that the kid can see themselves in their own future.
What do you think about charter schools?
So, charter schools are good. My nieces and nephews are in charter schools.
Okay.
So I will be perfectly honest with you. I told my sisters they're not going to be in public school because of all the stuff that's going on. I want them in charter schools. So all of them have been in charter schools. And then, my son even graduated from a charter school. I'm sorry to say. I took my kid out of public school. I did not like to see what was happening, especially with curriculum and how the changes were going. I'm like, no, we're not doing this. I'm going to put him over here so we're not, I get in trouble for using the word indoctrination quite a bit because my principal and a couple other people keep telling me that you can't use that word, and I'm like, yes, I can. But people don't like the word, but that's what's happening. Back in the day, you taught. No one knew anything about you, basically what your religion was, what your political party was, what your whatever was. You did not put all that stuff out there. You didn't teach anybody about your pronouns. You didn't teach anybody about your sexuality. All of that stuff was not in the classroom, which it is now, prominent compared to what you're teaching over here, which is geometry. So, but yeah, it seems like it's gone awry. And then, did I even get to the point you asked me?
Well, we talked about charter schools. And,
I think I went circular.
And I think you sort of addressed it. You were in favor of charter schools.
I am.
And
School choice.
From your perspective, because you were upset about the indoctrination that you saw going on in the schools, as evidenced through the literature that they're putting into the libraries, and if they're willing to do that, to deprive parents of even the knowledge of the information that they're imparting, and the fact that you've witnessed the way in which some teaching methods seem to put the personality of the teacher on display rather than the material that they should be focused on.
It should be content focused.
That is a change in the system that we have in our education system. Maybe it'd be nice to get focused back on facts again.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with that.
I'm going to continue to fight the battle.
So we had this thought about mental health, that the school system might benefit from. Have you ever heard of like a PHQ-9 form or a GAD-7 or a PCL-30? So in a primary care doctor's office, you'll give that as an assessment of depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Mm-hmm. It's that's 9 questions, 7 questions, and 30 questions, and so a half hour you could do all of them. Yeah. And we thought, what if you gave those to kids every year between the age of 8 to 18, and you just do a screening test, and you'd encrypt everything so that no one could identify who took what. And the only time anybody even sees it if they flagged abnormal. And then it's going to be the school nurse who says, okay, this kid had something that flagged. We'll bring him in. They'll notify the parents, and then they'll have a discussion about what they found. And we thought this might be useful for at least catching things early and preventing what might go on to be a crippling mental illness for people downstream.
Yeah. See, that would be a better idea than what we use. We use Panorama. So for mental health screening, we use this thing called Panorama. It's absolutely, it's a waste of money because basically the kids have an assignment in a class. So it's an assignment in a class. They take this assessment. It's about how do you feel about the school? Do you feel safe? This, that, and that thing. And then the questions actually are, do you feel safe at home? So it really leads the kids into answering the questions instead of actually really hearing what it is that what they're answering. So you're getting a false sense of what kids actually need or what actual kids are asking for. So you get all these red flags. The red flags means the kid is in some kind of mental health crisis. And then you call them and they're like, I want to change my art class to film studies.
Okay, that's different.
I'm like,
that's different than not feeling safe at home.
Correct. Yeah. And then basically when we do call and all that kind of stuff, 90% of those flags are not flags that have anything to do with mental crisis whatsoever. Okay. So then a few of them we might catch a couple, but we're not catching them the way we should. I mean, we have crippling mental health issues with these students right now. Here's the thing. This is what I'm angry about. Okay. What I'm angry about is when I look at test scores, like today we had a meeting today and everybody's yay! We went from a 44% to a 47% passing rate in English, math, and science. You're telling me that we're celebrating that 47% of our kids can pass those 3 core classes. 47%. You're saying that that's a good thing. And they're like, yeah, we raised 20% in 3 years or whatever it was. And I'm thinking to myself, it should be 100%. It should be 90%. I've never had anybody in my English classes that 80% of my kids pass the class because they learned something. You're telling me that we're graduating kids that are in high school right now, and there's only 47% of them that can be functional in English and in math and in science. Why are we celebrating this?
What is the reason for that? I mean, that's what everybody I talk to whenever so the dialogue goes, and I hear it on the medicine side. The executives here who, the chambers of commerce, we can't recruit people to Las Vegas because the education and the healthcare are so bad here in this state. And so the healthcare stuff, I've done a lot to try to improve, and we're still working on a lot of stuff, and I think we can get a lot done. But I understand that sector. The education, I'm never sure what to say because I don't really understand it well enough. From your perspective, what do you think the reason is that the outcomes are so poor in Nevada?
Well, because what has happened is they rush these kids through their education. It's rushed. It's never like, hey, 80% of my first graders know how to add and subtract. Okay. Now 80% of my second graders can divide and multiply. Now my third graders can now do fractions and this and that and the other thing. Now my kids 80% of these kids can do these pieces. So then when they get to high school, when they're doing higher level math, like algebra and geometry and algebra 2, then they can actually function and do those skills. But if you have third graders, our third graders right now are at a 44% passing rate, which means that they cannot read or write. And what we're doing is telling them that if you look at the pacing guide and you look at what is going on in the schools, those pacing guides are telling these second and third graders that they're writing essays now. They're writing structures that they don't even know how to write because they didn't learn their alphabet yet. So the problem is this. If you don't learn your alphabet and you don't know how to do words, and you don't know how to put the words together in sentences, how are you expecting the kid to write an essay about something that is, how do you feel about being a good citizen? How many second graders can answer that question?
Yeah.
Not even just written, but even verbally.
Sure.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
It's like higher level thinking. How about no?
Yeah.
How about we bring it down and teach the kids all these basic pieces, and then when they are able to do that higher level thinking, then you allow them that.
Sure.
But you cannot do it if you're not allowing them to continue to grow. So the more they push and the more they put on top of kids and say, oh, we're going to be, top of the chain. We're going to, make sure that we have high expectations. I'm glad you have high expectations. But when I taught sixth graders in middle school, we practiced. You know what a linking verb is, you know what an action verb is. And we sang songs with them. Is, was, were, has, have, had, could, should, would. And the kids memorized all those pieces. So then when they went to write an essay, they knew the difference between a verb, the different verbs, and how to put things together. I have seniors that are graduating this year that I put my name on. Makes me angry that I'm putting my name on, and they can't they can't spell the word counselor. They can't spell the word there, and there. They don't know the difference between where and where. They don't know basic language. If you don't know basic language, how are you expecting them to write higher level language essays? That's the problem. And that's the part that I'm like dumbfounded that nobody's like, they're like, oh.
So when I've asked people who are in the education system about that, they're like, well, we have so many people who come here from other countries and their English is a second language and they get tested at the same place in the same way that everybody else does, and they bring the scores down for everybody else.
No.
So that's not the reason.
I don't.
Okay.
No.
Well,
No.
all right. So then,
No.
I mean, I don't think kids are dumber than they used to be.
No. Half of the kids that speak English for their entire life can't read or write or speak the language, let alone kids coming from other countries that are doing the same thing. All these kids are doing the same thing. It's like a foreign language to them. English is not their English is their first language, and they should be fluent in it, and they're not. Then there's a problem with that. There's not a problem with the immigration issue. The problem is, what are you teaching? And why are you moving these kids along? And why are you graduating them if only 47% of them know how to read? Wow. Why are we graduating seniors that cannot read or cannot write? I don't understand it.
We got to bring some elementary teachers in here and kind of get to the bottom of that, because that's just, I mean, that's upsetting. Right?
It is.
And, because from where I'm at, people are asking me about, well, how are we going to defend the economy, and how are we going to compete with China and India and Russia and the other rising economies of the world? And, we rely on our school system to produce the kinds of people who can produce the kinds of jobs and technology that we're going to use to lead the world.
Yeah.
And so there's a heavy reliance on this right now, and it's kind of an all hands on deck situation.
Yeah. You can't rush kids through learning.
Okay.
You can't just rush them through. It's the same thing with special ed. I've been a counselor for special ed I did it for 5 years.
That's tough stuff. Congrats.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
so
that's a big heart, and it's a lot
yeah.
of heavy work.
So I know special ed too, and I know that the way they put their classes together, the way they put it in order. Here's an example. Mm-hmm. So last year, somebody in the big wigs area decided that they didn't want certain math classes, so they retired them. So when they retired them, you have special ed kids who have resource classes. So they're in special classes that's not gen ed, it's resource because it's lowered, it's filtered down for them. They need that math class, right? Well, they removed 1 year of that math class totally. So that means that kid who is special ed doesn't get 4 years of math like everyone else. They only have 3 maths. And I said, that's a problem, because this kids should have the same ability to be able to do 4 years of math. Because you retired it and you didn't think about the consequences of what you guys are making decisions about on the bottom level is a problem. So we took another math number and put in there so that we could give those kids a 4th year of math. That's a big problem.
I was just this last week I was talking to a gentleman. They're hiring, a lot of people all over the country actually for schools and for dental clinics. And he was telling me that he knows a lot of people who couldn't come to Las Vegas because the services available for their special needs children were just not here in comparison to other states, and so it limited our ability to grow. And so, are we behind in that area too?
Yes. Yeah, because you keep making decisions without understanding the bottom level of the workers that do the work. You know, if you want to know where the problems are, you go where the workers are. You go where the issues are. This school district at one time, because the kids were special ed, weren't putting them in core classes. They were just giving them 5 periods of art, 5 periods of pottery, you know, whatever. And then they came to my school, and I noticed that they're not in core classes, and I'm like, these are kids who are graduating from high school, and you're telling me they've never taken a world history? They've never sat in a U.S. history class? They've never been in an English class? I fought that too. Yeah. And I was able to remove that and get them in all their core classes, because it's not fair for those kids to be sitting in an art class for 5 periods. It's ridiculous.
There are a lot of people who are advocating that here in Nevada we need to break the school districts up into smaller districts, and that'll increase accountability. Does that sound right?
The only problem with that is if we saw that the different people that the area superintendents that are over all these different districts, if they were held accountable, then you would see that would work. But none of them are accountable to anything. So they just oversee and tell us that we're doing something that's wrong. But they never come down and actually do their area and figure out what is wrong in that section of the city. So
that's where free markets and charter schools come in again.
That's why
the finances sort of hold them accountable.
Yeah.
So heading up to Washington, going to try and fix things. What do we need to fix? And when I get to Washington, what's the first thing I can ask for that'll help Nevada move forward?
I think what Nevada needs is, I think what you're saying is accountability. The school district just asked for a whole bunch of more money. And they keep telling you, as somebody that's going to be in office, that we need more money to fix the issues that are happening with kids. And I think that's a lie.
Okay.
Because the more money we put into it, then that 47% of kids that can read and write should be at 100.
Fair.
So I think that if you're going to go into office, that you say, yes, I understand you may need more money, but I want to see where that money is going. I think that's the biggest thing you can do, because I think there's a lot of money that is going wasted. And I'm like, there's money there.
Transparency and accountability. You know, I mean, I know the New Jersey school system, for instance, is rife with corruption. Mm-hmm. I hope that's not true here.
Oh.
Well, I hope but accountability and transparency will help a lot, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that is a great answer.
Yeah.
And we can advocate for that, because they're all getting federal funds, and maybe the requirement for federal funds is you open your books and let people see.
And basically this, if we're giving you money and we're supposed to be we should not be celebrating 47%. Yeah. I'm sorry, that is not acceptable.
Who are 2 other people we need to bring onto this podcast to talk about this stuff?
I think, we did the Battleborn Freedom Conference at Calvary Red Rock. Yes. Calvary Red Rock has a great, Alex is excellent with the politics part of it and picking candidates and all that kind of stuff. She's on it. I am part of her team. Okay. So she was the one that helped me put the petition together. We raised 1,000 signatures to get that school, those doors open in that library. I presented up in Carson City. I sent it everywhere. I bombarded the school district with it. I brought them with me to show them that there's parents and people that care about it. So she would be a really excellent person to speak to, because she's very good. I don't know if you talked to Lorena B. Asadi yet. She's on the school board. Okay. She's the only one that will be on there that would advocate for, she wants students Emily Stevens is also excellent on that school board. Those two people, those are great people to interview because they actually listened.
All right, we got a plan.
Yeah, those two ladies are really good. Alex is excellent.
You have been amazing. I've learned so much sitting here listening to you today, and I'm sure all of our viewers will have too. Really, thank you very much for coming on to the show. It's the Dr. Nagy Show. I'm Dr. Ori Nagy, running for U.S. Congress, Nevada's 3rd Congressional District. Thanks for watching.
This podcast is a campaign communication paid for by Nagy for Congress and authorized by me, Dr. Nagy. The views and opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the campaign or its affiliates. Discussions are intended for informational and conversational purposes only and do not constitute legal, financial, or professional advice. Any references to public policy matters reflect general positions and priorities at the time of the recording and are subject to change based on legislative process and voter input.